morning, Suncoast. Sing 'em on back, sing 'em on back. Hey! I call you maker. You give life an eternal spark. I call you healer. Well, you can mend any broken heart. I call you faithful Father, 'cause you finish everything you start. My soul was made to respond. I know you by 1,000 names, and you deserve every single one. You've given me a million ways to be amazed at what you've done, and I am lost in wonder at all you do. I know you by 1,000 names, and I sing 'em back to you. Yeah, I sing 'em on back. Oh, your love is boundless, and beyond what I could dream. Your grace is patient. Oh, you're never giving up on me. I call you bondage breaker, 'cause you're handing out the prison keys. My soul was made, yeah, to be free. I know you by 1,000 names, and you deserve every single one. You've given me a million ways to be amazed at what you've done, and I
is good to be here with you guys. We got a treat for you. We have a new song. This song has some energy in it, and it has some pretty simple lyrics, but I want to hear you guys shout it out as we learn it together. You guys ready to sing some songs? Let's go.
Life you bring, you breathe on me, for out of you comes everything, 'cause we breathe and need this love, hey. And we breathe and need this love, and it's so it's so beautiful how only you can satisfy this heart. For you will always be the life I need. Sings
Would you sing this with me? I'll hang on every word you ever said, for I know you're faithful. Now I'm still waiting on a wealth of promises, but I know you're able. So if ever I stray, if ever I fall, won't you call me homeward? Won't you call me homeward? Well, I asked you more than once to hurry up the plans, but what if where you want me is exactly where I am? 'Cause what I learned from waiting is waiting never lasts. You didn't bring me this far just to bring me back. No, you're too good for that. I'll hang on every word you ever said, for I know you're faithful, and I'm still waiting on a wealth of promises, but I know you're able. So if ever I stray, if ever I fall, won't you call me homeward? Won't you call me homeward? Cause sometimes I feel you, and then sometimes I feel like I don't. But fate's more than feeling. It's like seeing the invisible, and yet somehow I see it. All the lies at the end of the road. I don't know the timing, but I'm guessing that's not mine to know. Lord, help me believe in all those days when I feel like I know. I've learned faith isn't fearless, but it's just trusting when you fear the most. And someday I'll see it, reach that house at the end of the road. Should that road leave me lonely, oh, I know that I am never alone. That I am never I hang on every word you ever said, for I know you're faithful. I'm still waiting on a wealth of promises, but I know you're able. So if ever I stray, if ever I fall, won't you call me homeward? Won't you call me homeward? Just call me homeward. Call me homeward.
And lead me to the rock, 'cause I need something higher, higher than the world could understand. Foolish as a cross, humble as the grace you give, the wisdom of a kingdom made to last. 'Cause I don't wanna build this life on Babylon's bricks and pride, sitting on a fault line bound to quake. I'd rather be a bedrock fool who trusts in nothing less than you, when every other show thing show me face. You lead me to the light, lift me from the sinking sand. I'm sorry for the junk I took for grace. Don't let it take a fall to bring me to my knees again. But if it's what I need, I'll take my place. 'Cause I don't wanna build this house with rubble from the same old ground, sitting on a fault line bound to quake. I'm banging on a rolling frame, the bedrock of an empty grave. Every other sure thing surely is. And Lord, through it all, through the wind and the storm, on this rock I'll stand. And empires may fall, pillars fail, people fall, but your love still stands. Rage after rage, till the end fades away. Still your kingdom stands. The name of the
'cause your love never fails. Your love never
No
fails.
said and done, all that matters is love. So let love take over, not just in part, but in all that you are. Let your love take over. No said and done, all that matters is love. So let love take over, not just in part, but in all that you are. Let your love take over. When all said and done, all that matters is love. So let love take over, just in part, but in all that you are. Let your love when all said and done, all that matters is love. So let love take over, not just in part, but in all that you are. Let your love take over. When all said and done, all that matters is love. So let love take over, not just in part, but in all that you are. Let your I know there's a place I belong, where I see the fullness of love. Child face to face with my God, lost in your awesome wonder. While I wait, I will not be afraid. Faith will remain not the same. Hope in the things not yet seen, found in the greatest of these.
All said and done, all that matters is love. So let love take over, not just in part, but in all that you are. Let your love take over. Thank you so much for singing with us. You may be seated.
The love of God, when we begin to open ourselves up to God's love, the grip of justice loosens. I thought that was absolutely a deeply profound statement. And I want to give you the chance to like explicate that. Like, how does God's love loosen this sense of justice in our life?
Well, I think it's back again to my concept of God. I don't live for God because I'm afraid or because I have the rules or this is the right way to live. I live for God because His love is so transformational. Also, I begin to give everybody else a little break too.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, oh, that's up to you. It's not for me to judge where you are on your journey of becoming the best you. It's for me to encourage you, hey, be your best you. You know what it is. I don't need to tell you what the specifics are, but at the same time, model it the best I can.
That's right.
But I think when love fulfills us, then we're back to our number one value. We're a hospital, not a courtroom. We just choose not to judge. Good morning. It's good to see you guys today. I used to have a guy say, "How in the world are you?" And people would go, "What? How do we respond to that?" And the answer is, "Great." Let's try it. How in the world are you? I love it. So I'm doing great. People say, how are you doing? Wonderful. I'm glad that life is good, and I'm glad that you're here. It's my joy to stand before you today. So we're in this teaching series called Becoming More. And 2 weeks ago, we looked at the birth of Moses, how he was raised in Pharaoh's house, and we talked about change and passion. And we talked about, what can we do to get more passion in our life? Because passion helps us become more. Last week, we looked at Moses' concept of justice versus our concept of justice, or many's concept of justice. And the takeaway from last week is this: a life of justice seeks retribution and leads to fear of exposure, but a life of reflection, that just leads to becoming more. There's more forgiveness involved. There are 4 words that define us and help us become more. And these 4 words, I love to share them with you, and they're really simple. Love God, love others. But someone would say, well, how do I love everyone? Well, you start today by loving someone. Maybe the first person you need to think about is yourself. And you realize that, I can love myself because God's presence lives in me, and I embrace that, and I go to the next person and the next person. It's not like I get up in the morning, I have to love everybody with all the fullness, and I can't do that, but I can love the people around me. And that's where it starts, just one day at a time. So, and if you want to know more about this type concept or anything that we talked about the last couple of weeks, you can watch it online. There's all these are recorded, and you can see them for your convenience as well. So today I want to talk to you about those things that change the trajectory of your life into becoming more. So here's a question I want to ask. Ready? Have you ever thought about those little decisions that you made or someone else made that changed your life? For example, if your parents did not always live where they lived, if they'd moved to a different city than the one they lived in when you were young, would that have changed your neighborhood? Or if you'd gone to college directly instead of going to work, or if you'd gone to a different university. See, I had this circumstance in my life when my dad retired when I was 15 years old. I was in 10th grade, 6 weeks from the end of the year, and he said, we're moving to St. Petersburg from Nashville. And I said, I'm a teenager, I'm 15 years old, I'm established, I had some little girl I was kept my eye on. You know how that goes. I wanted to stay there. My sister lived there, she's 12 years older, and she was like a second mom to me, and I said, Dean, do you think, could I stay here and finish my high school here, go to college right here in town? She goes, we'd love to have you. She talked to her husband. They had it all ready to go. And then I said, oh, that's good. I'm going to stay here. So I went to tell my dad the good news. I said, Dad, Dean's consented to let me stay here. I can finish my high school here. And he really said something like this: 5% no and 95% hell no. That's the way my dad was. And I don't think there was a lot of argument. I just remember thinking, well, that's a pretty strong no. And I moved to St. Petersburg in the 10th grade. And, I look back and I'm so grateful that my dad made me go to St. Pete. I'm glad because you don't know what the trajectory of your life would have been if you'd taken that different road or that different path. But I know where I am today, and I'm so glad he did that. When I was a boy, I made a decision that changed the trajectory of my life. It was this: I decided to follow Jesus. Remember the old song, I have decided to follow Jesus. Remember that song? He decidido seguir a Cristo. I even knew it in Spanish. I decided to follow Jesus. That one decision changed the course of my life. These connections with God, they shape our hearts and often change the trajectory of our lives. It was true for me. And I was thinking about my upbringing in church. I say this often, I grew up in church. I was in church the first week I was born. And in my upbringing in church, I confess that sometimes, as I look back, the church wanted to change me. They wanted me to make me a better person. And the way they would do that is by, we want to put more heaven in you so you're more heavenly, so we scare the hell out of you. And that's what I would describe it. I went to church and I was afraid continually that if I said the wrong thing, if I had one impure thought, I was going to burn forever. I was saved 5,000 times at least in Corona Festival. That was just in 9th grade. Why? Because it's just fear. And when I look back, spiritual formation, true formation, for me to become more doesn't come from fear. It comes through the heart. As we examine the life of Moses, and we look at his burning bush incident, you're going to see how it changed the trajectory of his life. So let's take a look. It's in the Message. It's a more contemporary version, but it's a long passage. Just follow along as I read it for us. Moses was shepherding the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. He led the flock to the west end of the wilderness and came to the mountain of God, Horeb. The angel of God appeared to him in flames, the blazing out of the middle of the bush. He looked, the bush was blazing away, but it didn't burn up. Moses said, "What's going on here? I can't believe this. Amazing. Why does the bush burn up?" God saw that he had stopped to look, and God called him from the bush. He said, "Moses, Moses." He said, "Yep, I'm right here." Or actually, the Hebrew is Hineni, which means I'm not just here, but I'm available. God said, "Don't come any closer. Remove your sandals from your feet." And I look at that and go, where else would the sandals be? But you're standing on holy ground. He said, "I'm the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob." Moses hid his face, afraid to look at God. God said, "I've taken a good long look at the affliction of my people in Egypt. I've heard their cries for deliverance from their slave masters. I know all about their pain. And now I've come to help them, pry them loose from the grip of Egypt, get them out of the country and bring them to the good land with wide open spaces, a land lush with milk and honey, the land of the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, the Jebusites, and any other ites that you want to put in there. All the ites. The Israelites cry for help has come to me, and I've seen for myself how cruelly they're being treated by the Egyptians. It's time for you to go back. I'm sending you to Pharaoh." And then if I were Moses, I go, "Wait, God, Pharaoh? I need to tell you, God, I grew up in his house. And the last I was there, Pharaoh wasn't very happy with me. I'm sending you to Pharaoh. But Pharaoh's already put a contract out on my life. I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the people of Israel, out of Egypt." Moses answered, "But why me? What makes you think that I could ever go to Pharaoh and lead the children of Israel out of Egypt?" "What about me?" God says, "I'll be with you. And this will be the proof that I'm the one who sent you. When you brought the people out of Egypt, you're going to come back right here and worship God right here on this very mountain." Moses said to God, "Suppose I go to the people of Israel and I tell them, 'The God of your fathers has sent me to you,' and they ask me, 'What is his name?' What do I tell them?" God said to Moses, "I am who I am. Tell the people of Israel, I am has sent you." Folks, this is a great teaching. And today I want to talk to you about this confrontation that changed Moses. The incident changed his life and the life of the people forever. This is one of those places that you go in your life, you have an intersection event, and all of a sudden life is different. There's several things for us to learn, and I want to share them with you. Here's the first one. It's in your notes. Fill in the blank if you want. The issues in my life that shape me can be useful in helping others discover more. Maybe the issues in my life can be used to help others not experience the same pain. Isn't that what parenting is about? We go through things and we don't want our kids to experience that, so we try to share with them, if you do this, pain will follow. If you touch the stove, it's hot, you'll get burned. And we try to teach people. But many of the things that cripple some embolden others within community. So today I want to talk to you about community, for example. Why community? It seems to me that humanity is a group of people who really should be together. And you look throughout history, it's always people coming together. It's not the isolated ones. You look at the animal kingdom, you see horses like to be with other horses, cows, deer, all kinds of animals, they like to be in community with one another. And humanity's the same way. Belonging to a community is an important part. The purpose of community is not isolation, but it gives us a stronger sense of self and can help us cope with negative experiences and feelings. Community is important. The reason you're here today, I think there's something inside of you that says, I really need to be a part of something more. And why is that? Because when you're in community, you can do something greater together than you could do by yourselves. For example, this community, in this year, we've given away a lot of cars, but in the last 5 or 6 years, we've given away about 200 cars. Now, that's a lot of automobiles given to single moms or those people who are taking the bus. A lot of automobiles, 200. We did that as a community. Say, I didn't give away any. Yes, you did, because you're part of a community that did that. You say, well, that's pretty fantastic. And changing the oil in cars, it's a simple thing. But about 25 to 30 cars get their oil changed every month here. people who need an oil change, people who need their car washed or vacuumed. And we do that as a community. So that's a great thing, but have you ever given away that many cars by yourself? Or a car? And you say, well, no. But I can tell you, I look around, some of you have given resources to buy cars. Some of you have actually traded your cars instead of trading them to the dealership, said, I'm not getting much out of it. I'm going to give you my car. And you've given it to us, and we go through it, make sure it runs well, and then we give it to someone who really needs it. That's what community does. Joining a strong community creates an environment where you feel a sense of belonging, connection, camaraderie. And with it comes, at least in the men, a lot of banter. Right? I mean, there's a lot of things going on with guys get together. I'm just looking at Byron here, sorry. He's just the first one. But I mean, and we do it with warmth and affection. It's like a brotherhood type of feeling. That's the purpose. Being a part of a community makes us feel human and valued, and a healthy community helps others become more. Before Moses was called of God, the children of Israel crying out for a deliverer. According to this text, God heard the groaning of his children and remembered his covenant with Abraham. And what was his covenant? Man, I want to make you as many descendants as a star in the sky. I'm going to make you a blessing to the world, and I'm going to give you some land. Now, hundreds of years later, the community is calling out to God saying, please deliver us from this oppression, from this bondage. And God says, I think I'm looking for someone to do that. You know, God works in different ways. But if it were me and I were looking for a deliverer, I'd say, look, I'm looking for a leader who could come in and do this. And right now, I'd put an ad on Indeed. You know, just come on, send your resumes. I want to see the resumes. So step up with your resume to lead the people out. This is a great job. I need a resume. So Moses gives his resume. Born in the house of Levi. That's a good one. Check. Hidden by his mother to keep him alive. Oh, that's good. Raised in the home of Pharaoh. Guess what? Educated. Check. Murdered an Egyptian. Uh-oh. No, that goes on the no, do not hire. Failed as a mediator between the Hebrews. Do not hire. Ran for his life. Do not hire. Shepherd. Definitely, you're not in. We need to look for another candidate. So was Moses a Bible scholar, a priest, a prophet, a man of prayer, a warrior? Probably not. But his life as a shepherd was preparing him to be the leader to change the world of his people from bondage to liberation. I have an older sister. As you know, I have 8 brothers and sisters. My older sister, Sherry, 8 years older. For Sherry watching this, thank you. She was being cute one day with me. And you know how brothers and sisters, the banter goes on. And she was saying, well, Larry, I hear all about this education. 4 years of college, 4 years of graduate school, seminary, 7 years going through a PhD program. She said, what I want to know is, what was the one thing that helped you and prepared you most for being in ministry? Here's my response. Being a maintenance man for 4 years when I lived in Kansas City. I was a maintenance man working through grad school, and she just laughed. She said, no, seriously. I go, seriously. I talked to an attorney today. He said the best thing that helped him become a trial lawyer, get this, was waiting tables in LA. He said, why? Because I'm waiting tables. I didn't know how to present anything. I wasn't a public speaker. I couldn't do very well. But all the people I had to come in dialogue with, selling, you know, all these celebrities, different type of food. He said, that helped me more in persuasion than anything else I did. Here's my deal. I was supposed to repair whatever went wrong in an apartment. Now, I need to be confessional. I'm about 20 years old. I got the job. They said, fill out your competence for all the things you can fix. And I grew up on the farm. I'm pretty handy. They said, okay, what's your expertise in plumbing 1 to 10? 10. Roofing, 10. Everything, 10. It didn't matter what it was. I mean, I just put 10 there. They hired me. And I was here, a student in seminary, graduate school, and bragging about all the stuff I could do and didn't know anything. I remember going to an apartment that said, the dishwasher's broken, go fix it. I'd go in there and look at it and go, wonder what's wrong with this thing. And I had this little expression I'd say, Larry, you got to be smarter than what you're working on. And right now, this dishwasher is smarter than you. That's why they didn't let me work in a rock quarry, because all the rocks were smarter than I was at that time. But I'd sit there and I'd look at it and say, all right, let me try the timer. I'd take the timer off, go get one from the shop, put a new timer in. Take a motor out, figure out how to do that, put a new motor in. That wasn't it. Whatever it was, I tried and experimented. But what happened is I'd sit there and I'd think, and I'd said, I got to figure out how to fix this. I said, and I basically then could fix dishwashers, disposals, washers and dryers, kitchen faucets, plumbing. I was even trained to do heating and air conditioning for a few years. And I didn't know how to do these things when I got the job. But the value was figuring it out, problem solving. I never had a class in school on how to solve problems. Nothing in my life has served me any better when I talk to people about what they're going through is listening well and trying to figure out what I can do to help them. I dream big dreams. Then I try to solve the problems that I put myself in. That sound like you? I mean, it's just problem solving. I grew up in a conservative church tradition. I have many friends who've left that tradition. There was a problem. In 1998, I left because I didn't fit anymore. I solved the problem because I was in this flux. The joke is, and I've said it before, I was the only PhD mobile home salesman in the state when I left ministry. Everything I'd studied for, I left it behind because it wasn't working for me. And then one day in Tallahassee in 1998, I had a burning bush experience in the bedroom of my home, Sunday afternoon. And all of a sudden, my life was forever changed. I mean, and I solved the problem. I didn't fit. So in my conversation with God, it was kind of like, Larry, I'm calling you to create a new church to where you will fit. God said, he's the major partner, I'm the minor partner, and I'm good with that. But be who you are. And I said, well, God, the first thing I want to do, I want to create a church that theologically says this: we casually dress. I was tired of wearing a suit and tie, and I was tired of it. So I said, first C, with 3 C's. Some of you remember this. First C, casual dress. Second C, contemporary music. No more hymns. I grew up in the hymns. I know hymns. And that's, these people, it's okay to love hymns. I love them. But I'm not up here trying to convince people to sing hymns. Very traditional. Contemporary music, number 2. Thirdly, Christ-centered teaching. For 25 years, Suncoast has been a Christ-centered place where we teach Jesus Christ and the teachings of Christ. And what comes against that often is this strong right-wing fundamentalism, conservatism. Things that says, you know, it's the Bible, it's all about the Bible. And if you grew up in a church like I did, the Bible was the Bible. It's almost like the Bible is God and everything else was secondary. And you read it literally, you quote it, and you make it say whatever you want it to say, and you abuse it. Now I'm a student of the Bible. I read the ancient languages. I understand it. And what I really understand is if you read it literally, you miss the greater truths that are there for you. So my job is to interpret it for you so you get it. Some of you grew up eating fish. You ever had a fish? Fish, you gotta be careful, 'cause sometimes there's bone in fish. You get a filet, particularly salmon if you're not careful. You get a bone in there. You ever get a bone and, you know, big fear, your parents say, oh, never get a bone stuck in your throat. That's terrible. But when I grew up in church, a lot of what we were being served was a lot of fish with a lot of bones in it, theologically. And sure, it tastes good. I can buy it, but all of a sudden, but it doesn't wear long because it catches you right here, and you go, I can't swallow this any longer, therefore I never eat this anymore. And I will tell you, there's a lot of good stuff in there. You just got to know where to pull the bones out to make it more palatable. Does that make sense? I mean, that's my job, and that's what I want to do for you. So the problem was solved because we created a church that fit us very well. Casual dress, contemporary music, Christ-centered teachings. We get away from the fundamentals. When people say it's absolutely this or absolutely that, I go, I've traveled all over the world. I've seen Catholics, Eastern Orthodox, people outside of Christianity, they're searching for God. And if I'm so naive, it'd be very small to me to say, God only works in this way that's taught in the South, particularly in Tennessee or in a very conservative pocket of the world. He's bigger than that. And I try to move away from that. So being Christ-centered is a little bit different than other-centered. So what does it look like? Well, a Bible-centered approach, and you've heard this analogy, but I won't tell it again to those who haven't heard it. It's like going into a room with a fireplace. And a Bible-centered approach, there's a big brick fireplace. It says the Bible. And I mean, every brick's in a row. It looks good. There's structurally sound because you made it all fit. And then you look, there's no fire there. Maybe a wisp of smoke if you're lucky. Then you go into another camp that's spirit-centered. And this is the charismatic group. You go into their living room, there's not a theological brick there. And it's too subjective, but I'll tell you what, they have a bonfire burning in the middle of the living room. And it's just going out of control. Wow. Now, if I had to choose between one or the other, maybe there's something in the middle. That's a Christ-centered church. We believe the truths of the Bible. We believe the presence of Christ, the Spirit of God, is very much a part of our lives, and we want it to burn brightly within us. It's kind of the middle approach. Problem solving. You know what it is? It's loving people solve so many problems. Problem creating is just excluding anyone who's not exactly like you. Problem solving is finding the truth buried beneath 2,000 years of theological debris. So here's the question. How can a shepherd prepare you for leadership? How can a maintenance man prepare you for leadership? Ready for this? How can put your career in there? Whether you're in sales or teacher or a hairstylist or whatever you are, how does that fit for you to where you're being used of God in the greatest way? God is preparing you through all the circumstances of your life to be a part of a community that can be a part of the problem solving, not the problem creating. Which leads to number 2. Taking time to listen can change the course of my life. Moses was a shepherd. He led the flock of sheep to find grass. He led them to the mountain of God, Horeb. Hebrew, the word mountain is Har, and Eb is the short for God. So the Mount Horeb is mountain of God. One year after Becky and I went to Israel, we did a side trip down to Egypt. And we actually took the road from Israel down to Egypt. And when you do that, you go through, it's called the Sinai Peninsula. The Sinai Peninsula is the most desolate place in the world to me. I've been to a lot of places. I've never been to a place where I literally felt like I was driving across the face of the moon. Very little vegetation, and very little there. And I was just wondering why Moses would even be here with a flock of sheep in this wasteland. And they come across this desert, and they finally get to the mountain of Sinai. And I've been there. I've been to St. Catherine's Monastery, which is at the base of Mount Sinai. This monastery is built in the 500s. And this monastery has some of the scriptures that have been the oldest scriptures found and discovered in the history of the world. And I've been there, and I talked to Father Joseph, and I've looked at Mount Sinai, and I've imagined Moses going up there and seeing the burning bush. And as Moses shepherded sheep across this terrain, and there's nothing there, and if you're Moses, you come along, all of a sudden you see a bush on fire. Would you stop and look? You slow down and stop on I-75 if a car has a flat. I know you would. I mean, most people do. You want to see what's going on. And it didn't burn up. But the bush was not the source of the fire. The bush was burning. It wasn't consumed. The bush was a conduit for the message to Moses. And the voice spoke his name. If you were there, it said your name twice and said, take off your shoes because the place you're standing is holy. What would you do? I'd kick my shoes off so fast. And I'd say, oh God, I'm in the presence of something that's amazing. There's nothing sacred about that wasteland. The ground became holy, meaningful, because of the presence of God. There are holy places all around you. You need to pause in reflection and realize God is near. Maybe it's in your front yard, or maybe it's in the backyard, maybe it's in your bedroom or your living room. Maybe it's in the grand hall or even here. And all of a sudden you sense the presence of God and you say, I got to kick my shoes off right now because I'm standing on something. I'm being caught up in something that's bigger than I am. After Moses hears his face, hears his name, he hides his face. I mean, if I were to preach this, and I have many times, I'd say the commission, I'm sending you the objection, I'm not worthy, the encouragement, I will be with you. The great word of encouragement from the Lord was his promise of his presence. And that encouragement is still available today. He's with us. Despite everything that he saw, everything that he experienced, he was still a little hesitant. See, on a normal working day, Moses ran into God. Can you imagine? After the burning bush experience, take your shoes off, and he goes home. He says, honey, I'm home. You wouldn't believe what happened today. I was out there and this bush was on fire. It was burning and there was nothing there. And then God spoke my name and all this stuff. And I should be going, 911. Send the crew out. Take him off. He needs to go to the funny farm. This is crazy. But this awareness is something that you and I can experience. It's a step in becoming more. It's the step to realize I am not alone. The first step of transformation. The realization that God is with me. Nothing has changed my life any more than the realizing the presence of God lives within me. It's not any sermon. It's not any fear. It was one day I realized I'm a son of God no matter what. I've always been his kid. I was blind from that because I didn't see it, but now I do, and I want to share it with you. The greatest thing I can tell you is that God is with you, and he loves you just as you are, and that's the beginning of transformation. Moses would never be the same, and I've never been the same since my burning bush experience, which leads to number 3. Becoming more occurs when the ordinary encounters the extraordinary. The initiative is shifted from Moses to God. Moses said, okay, I'm going to go back. You told me I'm going to go back and take care of it. I'm going to do it. No. Moses said, I know you're calling me. I know I need to do it, but I still have some questions. And the questions really revolve around, how am I capable? How am I qualified to possibly do this? And God challenges Moses, be the leader. I want you to go to Pharaoh. And why does God send Moses? You know, I would think be easier. God, would you just go to Pharaoh and take care of it yourself? If there's something going to happen, just go scare Pharaoh so good that he lets Israel go. It'd be easier, God, for you to do this without a human leader. For some reason, God has chosen to use people to change the world. People like you, people like me. He's chosen us to make a difference. He's chosen us to take something ordinary and turn it into something extraordinary. That's how formation works. That's how becoming more works. Out of the ordinary experience, we connect with the Spirit of God and we discover more. Out of the ordinary experience, we decide, wow, I can have a burning bush experience. I can just be a shepherd but transform to a leader. I can just be a maintenance guy and all of a sudden I get to be a pastor leader. The old life has been transformed into the new. The old life of shepherding has ended, but maybe a lot of the tricks of shepherding he's still using as he leads people the same way. The fear of the past is not allowed to cancel the promise of the future. So Moses said, who am I that I should lead them? And God says, I will be with you. Folks, no matter what you're going through today, I want you to hear God whisper to you, I am with you. I know your heart's broken about whatever. I know it's difficult about this, but I am with you. I know you're going to face challenges. I am with you. But God, you don't know, I got to have knee replacement, hip replacement, black, whatever. God says, I am with you. But God, I have some emotional issues. I have relationship difficulties. God says, I am. What a transformation. He goes back to his family, leads them from bondage to freedom. How did he get the courage? It was a process. It took some time, day after day. Then he stepped up and he was changed. And we can change too. Let me pray for you. Father, in moments like this, the challenge today is for us to pause and reflect and become so aware that the Spirit of Christ is not way out there, but it's in here. It always has been. And we pray for open eyes, open hearts, open lives to experience the richness of God that can take us to a place where we've never been. May it be so. For the honor of God, we pray. Amen. Would you stand, please? I want to tell you a story in closing. I've had a good friend. He's part of Suncoast. He's been a friend of mine for over 25 years. He's one of the guys, when we first started the church, his name was on the legal pad that went around, just a few of us there. But he would take me to lunch week after week. He'd take me to lunch often. And his wife said one day in front of him, says, Pastor, he's trying to buy his way into the good graces of God by buying you lunch. I said, well, it works for me. I mean, if you want to get in good graces, just buy my lunch. I'm okay with that. Without ever trying to correct him or his theology. I just continued to be his friend. and love him. Years ago, he and his wife went to Israel with me in the Suncoast group. And we went on a side trip called the Road to Emmaus. If you don't know the Road to Emmaus story, it's about two guys after Jesus was crucified. And they were down in the dumps. They'd been followers of Christ. And they said, and don't you know? He goes, why are you so glum? And he begins to explain, the circumstance. Why are you so glum? They say, don't you know anything? Jesus of Nazareth was killed. We're bummed about it. And he walked with them. At the end of the day, they invited him in. When he broke bread, all of a sudden their eyes were open. They realized it was Jesus. Jesus had been walking with them incognito all the way on the road to Emmaus. As I shared this devotion on the road to Emmaus, he came to me a few minutes later at Emmaus, and he said, Larry, I got it. I get it for the first time. God has always been a part of my life. I just didn't see him. Every day. I could stay here all day long. See, I'd love to see others have that experience, becoming more. Why? Because it'll change who we are and how we live. I'm here to remind you, he's around you, he's in you, he loves you, and so do I. God bless. Thanks for coming today.